we get into the third hour of our conversations this morning. This is the Situation Room. Ndu and Dennis with you. It's Friday, so one Dennis down. But hey, we still continue with our conversations this morning. There's a disease burden in the country, and when we think about it, every child deserves a healthy start in life. But threats like typhoid, measles, rubella still endanger our communities. So typhoid is a serious illness. It's spread through contaminated food and water. It causes high fever, stomach pain, and fatigue. Measles is highly contagious and can lead to severe complications, especially in children. We'll see symptoms like fever, persistent cough, red eyes, and body rash. But the good news is these diseases are preventable. So from the 5th of June, from the 5th to the 14th of July, the Ministry of Health will roll out a nationwide vaccination campaign. What can you do? You can take children between the ages of 9 to 14. They'll receive the typhoid conjugate vaccine. And those between 9 months to 5 years will also get the measles rubella vaccine. All vaccines are safe, effective, and absolutely free. You'll find health workers at public health facilities, schools, markets, and places of worship across the country. Let's protect the future, one child at a time. Visit your nearest vaccination center today. This message is brought to you by the Ministry of Health, UNICEF, World Health Organization, and development partners right here on Spice FM. And so that's something for you to think about over the next 9 or so days. What a week it's been. Can't run away from that, that's for sure. We've seen very, very many things happen. And that comes into our conversation for this morning, where we're saying, okay, let's take the week in review. It's just been 5 days, but 500 things have happened. And there are many questions up in the air, and we're asking ourselves, okay, so which way from here? To help us out with that conversation this morning, two gentlemen join us, and they're sitting in the hot seats already this morning. Josephat Kamanya is a political analyst. He's here. Javas Bigambo is here as well, lawyer and governance expert. Gentlemen, good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ndo. How are you?
Very well. How are you?
Like this.
You're like this? You're like this? It's been a long time since we've seen you like this.
Oh, yeah, sure. It's been so long. And I'm happy to be on Spice FM this morning. So as we spice up the democracy and liberties and issues of governance in this country, I also want to pleasantly imagine and hope that we can spice up the national character, our politics. Let's spice it up.
I mean, ginger your body, as you would say, isn't it? Do something at the very least.
Right.
So let's welcome you to the Situation Room this morning. Dennis is going to share the proverb. He'll tell you where it's from. Would like your interpretation.
And I'll start with the capital, and I'll start with Josephat, Gitega capital. You know that country?
Mm-hmm.
Bujumbura, you know that country?
Bujumbura, yes.
Yeah, that is Burundi.
Burundi.
And one thing that sounds about Burundi is they got the independence from the Belgians in 1966 after fighting the monarchy. It is a country that is considered to be the heart of Africa because of the hills in the country. One would say Kenya is the pride of Africa. Now, if you want to go to the heart of Africa, you go to Burundi. And the proverb that we get from this country, whose musicians know how to balance these big drums on their head, is something that still remains being a marvel. But our proverb, haste brings waste. Haste brings waste. Start with you, Joseph.
Wow.
How would you interpret that?
Yeah, very good morning to our listeners. Haste brings waste. I think that's pretty much descriptive of our country. That lack of planning just leads to inadequacy. And a lot of wastage in terms of resources and poor results, which is what we are grappling with socially, politically, and in our democratic space.
Javas,
so poor planning.
How would you spice it up?
Well, I would say, because from the word itself, haste, it connotes speed. And at times when things are done with speed, which could be at times meteoric, there is the possibility of the challenge of not being too mindful of some issues, some detail, having a watchful eye on some necessities that one's supposed to be particular to. And one could end up wasting time, wasting resources, wasting oneself, wasting opportunities. And it's true then, I would agree with that proverb that indeed, without the abundance of caution or care, haste brings waste.
It does. So what a week it's been, isn't it?
Sure.
We started out on Monday and we weren't quite sure where we were. And before it was midday, things already started showing themselves very clearly. We got to Tuesday and we went to court, and those who were supposed to show up did not show up and were told very many things. And they said, you know what, you've got a couple of days to present a Kenyan to us. We've had funerals. We have had mass services where things were said done. We have had an individual die, or the report given to us conclusively and now officially that Boniface Karaoke was dead. We then, before we got into the week, somebody who'd been missing for 12 days then just shows up, and we don't know if it was at the behest of the DCI or if it was at his own behest. Many questions are up in the air, but questions remain rife about the fundamental governance by which this country is operated and, taken by. And those questions are abounding. And we keep asking ourselves, which way next? Which way? And let's see if we can answer some of those questions, or if not, at the very least, discuss some of those questions. We'll start off with you, Jarvis, because, yesterday was a very bizarre day for a lot of people, and asking questions, not just, and that's the thing about imagery, isn't it? That a situation, in the way in which it presents itself, then can give light to conversations that you will have later, or realities that will be masked in a different kind of positioning, where you will say, this represents what exactly we're going through. That if we are confused about the situation, if we are not sure about who's pulling the strings, if we're not sure about who's calling the shots or spending the money, is that not the picture that's painted about the country itself at large?
No, let me perhaps start by saying that if there are any patriots in this room where we are gathered for this discussion, and in this country listening to us or watching us now or even later, their love for this country is not greater than mine. I love Kenya so much, abundantly so. And even the weight of words cannot wield the matter properly. And so I begin on the premise that the issues that have happened, including one that you are citing about yesterday, about Ndiangui's disappearance and reappearance, the entire legal drama, and the manner in which his appearance has been interpreted by his legal team, his family, and the manner in which even his reappearance was announced. All these things, and even events preceding the Ndiangui issue, matters to do with demonstrations, protests, etc.
And following that, where we saw an entire police station being burnt down and crowds of people in a funeral.
And even yesterday, the event happened again in Homa Bay.
Yes.
At the Mawego police station. And I would want to say that this gentleman, Ndiangui, who has reappeared or resurfaced, has been welcomed by ululations by his family, a great sense of relief, even by the court. But he has also been received by castigations about all the issues, circumstances surrounding his disappearance and reappearance. And I would want to say that if it's true that one would want to look at it through the lenses of the castigators, that actually he was in self-hibernation because his lawyer indicated that he was willfully hibernating to try and avoid being arrested by the police who are in search of him, then that indeed would be a pitiful antiquarian pursuit of sympathy and pity. But that's only one way to look at it. The other way would be, is it possible that he was in self-hibernation, or that his declaration that he was in self-hibernation has been curated?
Was it his declaration?
Yeah.
Yes. So as a matter of fact, he has not himself spoken with clarity about it. But because he has spoken through counsel, who has declared that to the family, Ndiangui has indicated that he was in self-hibernation, then it throws mud upon the issues of accusations, because there have been accusations and counter-accusations around his disappearance. Secondly, we remember that the DCI and police had been asked by Justice Mwita to produce the man, dead or alive, under the application of habeas corpus. And the DCI in court averred that they do not have the man, they have not seen the man, and they're in search of the man. So actually, the DCI and police were acquitted of the claim that they were having the man in custody.
However, Javas, as you talk about acquitting the police from this matter, I look at it from the other side, that the man Ndiangui, as told by counsel, went into hiding, right? But he went into hiding for one purpose. He does not trust the police who would arrest him and take him through the proper justice system. That alone is a reason enough for me to sit here and say, rightfully so, because he was afraid he would disappear, never come back. He would go to a police cell and maybe die. Is that another way to look at it?
That is one sober way to look at it as well. It can be entertained. However, the issue is, upon the scales, what is the weight of that view? I, sitting here, Javas, began with the grandson of Samson, I would say this, that I am not covetous of gold or honor, but so much covetous of peace, justice, truth, and sincerity in all matters, whether matters governance, matters justice, etc., and sobriety. The issue is this. Yes, we have had issues where trust in police has seriously glaciated because the manner in which some suspects have been handled. Case in point, the now deceased Albert Ojwang, the manner in which he was handled. One can easily entertain such kind of fear. But fear alone should not be the garment that one wears all the time, especially in a period such as this where it's very cold. I would want to say that running away or hibernating willfully and then reappearing, remember that then he can easily attract a charge that he uttered falsification, that he had been abducted. Secondly, we can also say that it invites all of us to the table of conversation. That one, how can we improve the character of the security officers, particularly the police? How can we enhance public confidence in the police and public trust in institutions, whether it's the police, whether it's IPO, etc. So all this is an invitation for not dialogue, as it's been called by some, because if we want to go the path of dialogue, we have had so many, including NADCO, which only whets the appetite of the people in the top echelons of power, politicians, but not the ordinary citizen. So I think it's an invitation for us to have a critical, sober conversation as a country on how do we move forward in ameliorating our democracy.
Just for it's a time for us to find solutions and bring Kenyans on the table together with the police for this trust to be brought back. Is there even room for that?
Well, the question is, where is the table and who is serving, who is hosting this meeting where we're bringing Kenyans and the other state organs for a conversation? And I would want to take a different approach and look at it this way. Ndiangui may speak at some point because he's alive, but Ojwang will never speak. Rex Masai will never speak. Boni Karaoke will never speak, and many others. And what we are looking at in our nation today, we are not looking at an increase in crime, where you say robbers and gangs are killing people. We are looking at atrocities from the state organs itself. And unfortunately, the same leaders of the regime are burying their head in the sand, and they do not want to acknowledge that what we have is a revolution. That the people, the social angst in the country cannot be contained by mere rhetoric, by enacting law that we try and manage how people come out and protest. The social angst is about a systemic change that is so much deserved and warranted by all Kenyans across board, who are saying they want, one, the rule of law. We want to be led by in a country where the rule of law is upheld, such that to the extent if I'm arrested by a police officer, they'll be reading me my rights. They take me to a police station or a police post, and then I'll face the due process. Such that, if now today we are talking about the vaccination, Kenyans are saying, before you tell us about vaccinating us against typhoid, just clean up the streets, do garbage collection. You know where the disease comes from. So today, like in these coming days, we're going to have about 13, but I think 6 billion goes to the typhoid and all that vaccination. But what would we have done differently as a preventive mechanism? We know Kenyans want changes that are very well articulated. But unfortunately, the leaders who are in office today, they have turned the state organs, in this case the security agencies, against its own people. And that's why this revolt cannot be resolved through a discussion, cannot be resolved through a dialogue. We don't need another commission of inquiry. People want a proper change of leadership.
How can it be resolved? Because you seem to say that right now the mechanisms that are being employed for that are not working. So something else needs to be done. What's that?
Yeah, correct. I mean, they're not working. They're not appropriate interventions from the government. What we need is just people we need to uphold our constitutional right. Again, we don't want to overturn the government now. That will not resolve that will not resolve the problem. Getting a president out of office, that will not resolve a problem. Having young people appointed into office, that will not resolve a problem. We will need to go through the constitutional way. People will need to, when the time is right, come out and vote in persons whom they know can deliver the mandate that is outlined in each and every office, ministry, agency, and department. We just need proper people who in office who can serve as they are supposed to. We keep hearing about state capture, whereby here, like today, we know the incompetence of the National Assembly has never been more pronounced than in this 13th Assembly. So at what time do we allow this division of power, merely letting the Constitution work? What time do we allow devolution to work? At what time do we allow the public policy to be the essence of the government being in office and in existence, allowing room for improvement on how service provision is done? So that's the only way. So it's not going to be an overnight process, but clearly we need a paradigm shift. We need to evaluate the characters of the persons we let into office. That would be a good start.
How do you do that, Jarvis?
Well, I have got some mixed feeling about the pronouncements by my kindred here concerning the issues some he has referenced as revolution and allowing the Constitution to work. Granted, this Constitution 2010 that we have does not require the permission of anyone to work. It is self-executing. What we need is the respect of the worth upon which this Constitution is written by citizens and those that have got the honor of holding public office. Second, we must appreciate that public service entirely depends on the manner in which private character is irrigated. Because it is from the privacy of our homes, our upbringing, our sociology, that we get to have individuals run for office and hold those offices. So the problem starts from the family level. The problem is individual. That's one. Secondly, I would say that what we are having in Kenya today, as we have had in the past close to 2 decades, is not a revolution. Even now, we're not having a revolution. There's no revolution taking place at all. What we are having is the evolving character of our politics and our democracy. Evolving, not evolution. Revolution, rather. Revolution is engineered by leaders. These, of course, from 2024, we've heard the Gen Z say that they are partyless, leaderless, tribeless. To this day, the Gen Z, which is a word that has found a great home in our political lexicon, common parlance referring to young people standing up for their rights against government. Now it's been expanded to refer to anyone that is in opposition of government, because I've heard even Kalonzo, I've heard even Rigathi Gachagua claiming that they are the leaders of the Gen Z. Boniface Mwangi, I've heard them. The issue is that, and impressively so, the character of our democracy is evolving and evolving for the better.
Sorry, you said revolution is engineered by leaders. Is that the case? Let's look at revolutions around the world. The revolutions that were based on bread, for example, in France.
Yes.
The revolutions in the South Americas that were based on the high cost of transport, the high cost of transport. The revolutions in different parts of Europe that were over things like the price of charcoal. there was a silent revolution that took place in the US over how the economy had tanked to the point that people could not afford houses anymore.
You know, though
Those
you
were not
though
necessarily
you are right. You are right.
engineered by leaders.
However, you had interjected when I was just at a comma of my pronouncements.
Okay, comma, next.
That beyond leaders being behind revolutions, we have got ideologies being also behind revolutions. Look at the Arab Spring, the French Revolution, etc., and many that you have even enumerated. When it is founded on an ideology, and that ideology sparks a fire, not just in one person or in one quarter or section of the country, but in the populace of a territory or a nation state, then we see a topsy-turvy situation of the manner in which the governance of a country is handled or gets to turn around. Look at it this way. Whether it is the young man who set himself on fire that sparked the Arab Spring, that led to a critical revolution, not just in that country, but even in the minds of men and women across the entire Arab Peninsula. Here in the country today, what people are asking for, the young people, the middle-aged, even the old, one, people want accountability, rationality, reasonableness, all those things that are sheltered by Article 10, Sub-Article 2 of the Constitution of Kenya, the values of good governance. They are written. Even the memorandum, the partnership between ODM and UDA still is tethered to the ideals that are in the values of good governance in Article 10, Sub-Article 2 of the Constitution. But what's the problem? The problem is that we, the people, have actually refused to change. Our leaders have refused to change. Now, look, today, and I've seen even a coterie of leaders gathered in Western Kenya saying that this is change in its manifestation. Change from individuals who've been in power, some of them from 1980s. Change from individuals who've held public office, executive office, the list of them having held office for 10 years.
So if that were to change, then you kind of agree with what Josephat said, where you need
No,
to come to the ballot to make that change.
The issue here is, what are we presenting at the ballot? And that's why I'm saying, to some extent I would agree with him, to a great extent I would not. What are we presenting to the ballot? If to the ballot we are presenting the same characters who've been in power for many years back and we have not seen them being transformative, then we're the ones to blame, because we are presenting, a dog's vomit. Secondly, just before he comes in, we need to call ourselves to an end to this dog whistling. Remember, for even a dog whistling to be very effective, there must be dogs.
And whistles.
There must be whistles and the owners of the dogs.
The whistler. Yeah.
So we must call an end to this dog whistling and, in fact, speak sense and sensibilities to the owners of the dogs and the whistlers. Because that speaks to what he's talking about. Going to the ballot is not a problem. And that's why last week I castigated my fellow citizens who are saying that they must go to State House, they must go to Parliament. Look, if a question of scaling the security of State House was the noble cause, then it was a pilgrimage to nowhere. It was a lost cause already. The issue, like he says, that changing the government or changing regime, we can change with something that is just nearly exactly the same. What ideals do we have, are we speaking to, that we say we want to take to the ballot, as he's talking about? It is that which we must be concentrating on right now.
I think we're going for a break.
Let's ask a question. We can go for one here.
Yeah. So there is the question of the problem is us. But if you look at the us that exists right now, have come out to say we must change things. We can't continue like this. So in terms of looking at 2027 and going to the ballot and changing things, like he says, we can't replace that with the dog's vomit. So which way, Kenya?
Well, yeah, which way, Kenya? It's a valid question, and I do agree with him. The perceived opposition, the brigade that is out there that are trying to own and usurp the Gen Z movement and the revolution and position themselves as the leaders of the change, those are just, I don't want to say they're the ones whistling, but I would want to say they're leading us to nowhere. the revolution and the change that people are calling for is owned by the people. First, we need to decipher what is and discern exactly what is going on. If you look at that brigade, the Wamunyoro brigade, the Kalonzos, the Wamualo, all those people, first of all, even including Mother Karua in that lot, they were all either in this regime, this government, and they've been kicked out, or they were in opposition. Then the Azimio coalition.
It's called a grouping of the deputies.
Correct. Which has then joined the government. So now the deputies have come out and they're saying, no, our masters were not very right. We may have a better plan than them. Clearly, as Kenyans, we must be insane to think and imagine that those are the people who will deliver this change. Therefore, there has to be a third force. Which way Kenya is a third force, where you and I, Kenyans who are disgruntled, Kenyans who understand that this coalition of the deputies is not an option. And of course, the existence of this regime into a second term is a mirage that we cannot let come true. We must rise up and form a third force, where now we have ideals, where now we agree ideologically that this is exactly what you want to do. And that's why I'm very happy today, because the revolution, and people will come to agree to it that the revolution is in play, is not talking about a presidential candidate. It's not talking about a next leader. We are talking about the issues that we would want addressed. Social justice, rule of law, economic changes, all these reforms and transformations that we want. No one is even calling for a review of the Constitution, because we know the spirit of the Constitution, which is our leader in the movement, in the coalition, in the revolution rather, is as solid as it's supposed to be in the matters of transforming this nation. And once we're able to identify our issues, then we shall parade anybody who has interest to becoming a president and ask ourselves, who is the right person who can do the job? So this attempt, you see, because I see attempts from the coalition of the deputies and the regime trying to divide Kenyans along generations, along ethnicity, along even economic classes. And those will not hold come 2027. Now we are more woke, and I keep telling Kenyans: be proud of your tribe, of your origin, of your heritage. That should not be in any way be used against you or drive you into making a political decision. Because you are who you are and you come from a place. Embrace your culture and the person that you are. But when it comes to, because that's a local and a very individual issue, when it comes to matters of national interest, we must sit down and ask ourselves, when we don't have free education, it does not matter which county you come from. When you have the shilling not really giving you value for money, your buying power has dwindled, it does not matter which tribe you come from. When you have young people being shot in the streets of Nairobi, it is not considered which county they come from before they are shot. All these effects, we are feeling them across the nation. Therefore, matters of national interest, we must be able to separate these divisionary tactics that the government is trying to employ, and also we must refuse to be put in a cocoon by this coalition of the deputies, whereby now they want to tell us that they are the only option we have in this country. I've heard even the great Wamunyoro speaking and saying, I'm going to offer direction to Kenyans on which way to go. The man has exhibited a track record of poor decision making. Therefore, how can he all of a sudden be this wise person who is able to give and direct the country politically to economic transformation?
Let's take a break.
I will say this, that we are in a festival of madness. How do we imagine that we'll get the right answer when evidently the formula is wrong? Festival of madness. How is it that we can incubate anarchy and hope that someday peace and justice will hatch? How can we, with all sobriety? Look at it this way. I have seen Dr. Matiang'i, a good man who's been in leadership and holding cabinet positions for 10 years, who actually, on record, and you could check, because the ledger is there for assessment, who has got upon his name and record 12 contempt of court cases. 12 and counting. Look at somebody like Wamunyoro, who has done a somersault on things that he was speaking about and advocating when he was deputy president. Now that he's in Siberia in the cold, he has changed tune. He's singing some kind of music that I can't even hear, even though he's saying that he's listening to the ground. Look at it this way. We are a polyethnic society, and our leaders in this nation state, as he said, are trying to slice and dice us along sanguinary issues, cousins, and along tribal and regional interests. I mean, what kind of a fiat of madness are we entertaining? And that's why I'm saying a festival of madness where we want to have a right answer using a wrong formula.
Okay, so if this is formulaic in nature, the question is then who's going to craft the formula? Let's take a break and we're going to come back and we're going to discuss this because it's necessary for us. We can say so much, but with us staying in that position and with us actually not saying, well, this is what we see that can be done. Because if anything, the nation is speaking and very loudly. If we look at the different things that are happening in different pockets, things are being said. Who is listening and is going to take those ingredients to create this formula that you're talking about, which then needs to then be translated at the ballot box? Those are the conversations that we're having this morning. We will come back after the short break. Josephat Kamanya and Jarvis Bigambo here with us this morning. Continue after this at 20 minutes to 9.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
I make my Tuesday count by reading the Financial Standard. It helps me make much better and smarter financial decisions.
Setting the standard every day of the week. The Standard, Kenya's bold newspaper.
In the next episode, we're looking at the cuisines, how China is tapping in the culinary space from the villages all the way to international market.
One of the experiences is a restaurant where you cook for yourself.
This is a serious cultural tourism.
Tunaweza kuwa na hoteli kadhaa ambazo tunaweza fanya kama wenye wa China wanafanya, na ni vitu zinaweza letea wananchi wetu faida kubwa sana.
I think for us as a country, it is a matter of not just displaying our intangible cultural elements, but then living in them, bringing them to life in order that our people can enjoy and they are transposed back into time.
It touches their heart, it touches their souls, and that is the very basis of intangible cultural heritage.
DJ Tatua.
My name is Maria.
Hey, yes, I'm Simon.
My name is CEO Charles Otieno.
I am the Dr. C. And I bring family, love, fashion, culture.
And you know I love some good controversy.
From past lessons to today's stories.
I anchor the conversations with distilled wisdom. Let's talk about it.
I will never ever hold back.
Only on Let's Be Real.
Sunday at 10 p.m.
on KTN.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Every day, some of which you talked about, social justice issues, infrastructure, poor here and there, like poor governance, etc., and we know what it is. And if we thought, and that's why we say there's imagery all over the place. Look at what happened yesterday in Homer Bay. It wasn't just people welcoming the son of the soil to bury him. There was a protest by the things that were done. There is the voice of the people that is crying out, it is speaking and saying that we cannot continue in the manner in which we are continuing. Take it as you may, but it is very clear. It is the bizarreness that we were met with when we looked into the courts yesterday at 11 o'clock and somebody showed up 12 days later and the questions are, where did he go? And that the very minute something like that happens and people are starting to question the status quo, you must ask yourself, why would you, somebody asked me yesterday, why would you mistrust or distrust? And I said, it's not about mistrust or distrust. It's them telling us and doing the same thing that they've done before. Historically, we've seen this before. Lived experience is that we have seen this same thing happen before. Why would we think that it must be something new? It's not novel. It has happened before. So with all of those things taken into consideration, we're asking ourselves the question now, what do we do? Very simply, without philosophy, without dressing it up as anything else, what do people actually do? What do you do?
Well,
okay.
I would say this. Of course, from the narration you've given, I personally have watched and heard in dismay the expression of anger, effusion, the dismay, the legitimate discontent by my fellow citizens about matters governance. As a matter of fact, there is legitimate discontent about how services are being delivered, perhaps how police are handling issues, rights of arrested persons. All those things are things that are problematic, and we must face them. You ask, what must we do? In getting the formula correct, I would say this. For instance, as we are in pursuit of justice, social justice, which actually is a right, not just constitutional, it is a right that is eternal as human beings. How must we go about it? How is it that as we demand our rights that are shrined in Article 37 of the Constitution, we go beyond that and occasion economic injustices to other people? Look, as I sit here, I believe that I'm speaking the tongues of many a faith. God hates injustice of any kind. Whether you read the Bible, the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita, the Manu Smriti, God hates injustice. So what, for example, the police officer did to Boniface Kariuki Mwangi is a great injustice, and it's very bad. We must condemn these things. What the police did to Albert Ojwang at Central Police Station, it must not only be condemned, there are things that the triers of fact and justice must ensure that they face the harshest of penalties as a deterrence and a lesson. We must have institutional reforms. But look, we are talking about, yes, youth bulge. We are talking about, yes, high unemployment in the country. Just look at last week alone, or look even further back to 2024, June 25th. How many businesses in Nairobi and across the country were looted, buildings torched, employment opportunities lost as we dramatized, or the people dramatized, their right to social justice. So that's why I'm saying we must get the formula right. That as we seek our rights, we must not cause grave economic injustices to others, to cause them loss of economic opportunities. Because look, the Constitution itself must also be read conjunctively, not disjunctively. As we say from Article 1, we, the people, are sovereign and have got the power that we must exercise. When we say Article 37 has got rights to protest, demonstrate, picket, present memoranda and petitions, remember that the same Constitution provides for socioeconomic rights. Some rights are vertical, others are horizontal. Vertical are those rights that are owed to us by the state. Horizontal, it's about us human beings, citizens amongst ourselves. The other thing is this. Is it possible then that we can also engage or exercise this right differently? For instance, when you look back in history, whether it was in India or America during the civil rights demonstrations, we had demonstration marshals who ensured that there was no looting, there was no burning down of buildings, etc. How come we cannot have such marshals to stop such kind of economic justice and perpetration? Secondly, if we were to engage, for example, in hunger strikes, if we were to call for hunger strike as a way of demonstration, how many people will show up in Nairobi town here that we're going to have a hunger strike on the streets for the next 3 days? How many will show up?
Javas, I hear you speak in terms of reading the Constitution as a whole, in terms of even respecting each other, in terms of when it comes to demonstrations. But remember, the Constitution itself as well provides room for notification to the police officers who then come in to provide security. And one would argue that it is the work of the police to ensure these buildings are not looted, that protesters themselves are well taken care of. But then again, it comes during demonstrations and you see it is the police themselves giving security to those who would be goons. And with that, then if you look at even how the duty bearers and those with the role of protecting the Constitution and upholding it are the ones breaking it. So then, is the state itself letting down its own people? Are the rights enshrined in the Constitution guaranteed? Because then again, there is a listener who said that justice, truth, and accountability per the Constitution is the antidote that Kenya wants. Would you reckon?
I do reckon that's what we want. And I also reckon that the state has neglected. It has abdicated its own duty. Remember, it's not once or twice or thrice we have the allegations that the goons were hired by either members of parliament or a governor, and they were protected by the police. So when we say that the riots are turning violent, clearly it has been said even by those who are coming out to protest that we are not violent, we are not robbers, we do not rape, we do not, vandalize. But at some point in the wee hour of the protest, when they're almost being deemed peaceful, there is always infiltration. Remember also last time we saw guys who were hired, I think it was said by the governor of Nairobi, they came with bodabodas and rungus, saying that they are protecting the city. How do you, as a state organ, whose your own mandate is to offer security to both humans, protect life and property, abdicate your responsibility to civilians and arm them, that they can now come and protect the city? Where was the police? Where were the police? So that's what I'm saying, that I do reckon the state has abdicated its role. And when you hear people saying that now, on that note and many others, we are rendering this government illegitimate, it is because of such conduct. Now, that is one. Secondly, the case of Diangui. The DCI is very guilty.
How so?
Of either commission or omission. If a person goes missing in this country, they should know. If they have not abducted the person, they should have initiated an investigation to find out where is this person. Because a missing person was reported. And actually, even remember, the reason he went missing is because they were looking for him. So it behooves them to find out where was that Kenyan for all that time. So I want to say that they're very guilty. If they did not abduct him, then they omitted another responsibility of executing an investigation to find out where is this Kenyan. So that if they're saying indeed he was in hibernation voluntarily, we would not have experienced all this emotional anguish as a nation, where people were saying another one down. And then he resurfaces yesterday in court. That's why I said he's here to speak. We are going in time, in the fullness of time, we may get to realize what happened. But we cannot have security agencies who are negligent on their mandate. Security is not just about a matter of commission. Even though you could be guilty by omission. Therefore, we have to look at greater lengths of what happens in nations whereby people no longer trust the state organs. The judiciary, people are having, cold feet. If this case goes to court, how will it turn out? The police, if one is arrested, what happens? We saw the other day there was a person who was murdered in Kenyatta National Hospital, and to date we don't know what happened.
No, we don't.
You get? And that was this is a national, this is a public facility. So we must raise the question of to what extent does the mistrust cut? And the unfortunate bit is don't know for how long this will hold. We may not even get to 2027. Because if the social angst continues as it were, my friend is talking about a hunger strike, but people may revolt even paying tax. Because if you're paying tax to a government that is not serving you, that is now even killing citizens, of what essence is that? And now that will be the crippling of our economy, which is what we do not want. So there is no telling to what length this is going to go. So even as we come out and protest for our right and agitate for the changes that we want to see, we must continue reminding the people in office. And I would like to talk to my employee, number one, who is the president, that he has a responsibility of unifying this country. Whether he comes back in 2027, which people were loudly saying that he will not, we should not be put in a contest whereby we have to decide, are we going to re-elect him in 2027 or is he going to serve us now? His term, the constitutional term, definition of a presidential term is 5 years, which ends, I mean, if we were to go by the generic wisdom, on 10th of August, 2027. He has an obligation as a president with all his team, the executive, the judiciary,
The advisors.
Everybody. Oh, please don't even talk about the advisors. But he has a mandate and a responsibility to serve as Kenyans. And if he cannot do anything else, just leave us in peace the way he found us.
Is it time for somebody to rise up? Because that's the thing, that if we're saying that, what did you call them? The Congregation of Deputies, what did you call them?
Coalition
of Deputies. Yes. If you say that even from that there is no one that can be chosen, and that from the buffet of would-be leaders that you're looking for into the future, that there's nobody to be chosen, who's going to rise up? Because you need somebody. We can talk about revolution. We can talk about, putting forth uncomfortability or dissatisfaction with the way things are currently being run. But the truth of the matter is that somebody is needed. Somebody is needed to counter the status quo. Somebody is needed to go and put up their, position against those who are currently running. Martha Karua sat in this chair the other day and she said, you know what? Don't say that we can't because we've been here for a minute. You also need to go through the fire and show us that you come out as gold. Run against me, and if you get against me, I will gladly give it up. But who's that person? Who are those people? Do we see them? Do we have them?
There is a young Zimbabwean lady who years back wrote a book titled We Need New Names. Her name is Noviolet Bulawayo. We need new names, she said. I think in this country, we need new ideas, we need new leaders. Not recycling these old leaders who have got no new ideas, no ideas at all, in fact. If Martha is speaking the way she does, senior counsel, when she was Justice Minister under Kibaki, what was her character and attitude? So condescending. Then she says now she's ready to take Kenya into the promised land.
To her credit, she also said at some point that she wasn't comfortable with the way things were going, and then she relinquished her position and resigned.
We got to 2007 post-election malaise because of the character and condescending nature of leaders at the time, Martha Karua leading the pack. We cannot run away from history. Look, Ndu, value me for the worth of truth. My hands are this clean. We must speak the truth, whether citizens or those in office. And if at all, by way of the weight of this truth, we are marked to die, then we are enough to do this country loss.
So who's going to do it? And I think that is it, Jarvis. Who's going to do it?
Look, we have got enough talent in this country. Ndu is here. My brother is here. I am here. There are too many citizens out here. There are those in office. There are those that... Look, when you look at even the young people in this country, some of those even protesting, have got capabilities to be governors, to be senators, to be members of the National Assembly. The people are there. Who deceived the coalition opposition that they are the God's gift to humanity and the only ones ready and available to lead Kenya? Who deceived them? Kenya has got enough talent, enough ability of persons to lead it. When we were younger, people used to fear, and I read somewhere that if Moi gets out of power, the country is done. Moi left. Then came Kibaki. People wondered now, after Kibaki, who can lead this country? Kibaki left. Came Uhuru. Uhuru left. People wondering, who will lead this country? Look, we have got enough manpower, talents of individuals who can lead this country. The only thing is this. We have created lots of hindrances on the road. We've made our politics, for example, too expensive that a young man or woman with ideas time and ability cannot finance a campaign to become an MCA, to become a senator, to become even president. When IBC, for example, said that for you to be governor, you need about 500 million shillings to campaign, yet your salary as governor for the 5 years cannot get 500 million shillings. Isn't that an invitation or railroading corruption already?
So our minutes are ticking by. So from your perspective, Joseph, who's this person? I mean, I know you've painted the picture, but who's this? Where are they? Who are these people?
Well, well, we have Kenyans who are able and who will. And I can tell you for sure that on 10th of August 2027, Dennis and I will vote for a person who will be president that will transform the economic architecture of this nation. The question we are having right now, who is this person, is a decent question. And that's a conversation we need to continue having. And we need to start disqualifying all these characters who are posing themselves as the next president of this nation. Definitely, it cannot be this coalition of the deputies. I spoke about the third force earlier. And the third force, this will be a voice of the people, by the people, for the people. People who will say that exactly what we need is this, and this is the right person who will get the job done. So for now, I know. I saw an attempt by Fred Matiang'i. He had some interview. And he was just trying to exonerate himself from, the mud of his past experiences in government. Clearly, the man has no agenda. The coalition of the deputies has no agenda. So we need to listen to, as people come out, we will be telling them this is what we will want. Will you be able to deliver? I've heard, and you guys have hosted here the party, is it the party leader of Safina, Jimmy Wanjigi. He talks about odious debt. Sometimes I imagine this country without debt. What will we do with all the economic resources we'll be having? We might be able to have some economic transformation. So these are the ideas we need to hear. These are the ideas we need to continue conversing around. And we must agree that the leader, people say, I'm not interested in politics, I'm a business person, I don't care about politics. Politics is life. Whether you come out and vote or not, the outcome affects you.
In every single way.
So we must continue having this conversation locally, loudly, and together.
Indeed. Our time is so short. We can't. We wish we had more hours, but we can't. But that's why we need to have them regularly and more often. I want to thank both of you gentlemen for joining us this morning. Josephat Kamanya, political analyst, and Javas Bigambo, lawyer and governance expert. Asante. Let's be part of making the conversation front and center as often as we can. Good morning, folks, at 9:02.
This is the Situation Room.